So good afternoon and welcome back to today's afternoon session of the 3-0 Forum. Today we will be talking about fostering, we'll be talking about AgriTech. So everything that has to do with low-tech, high-tech within the agricultural sector here in Southeast Asia. And to do so, let me call on stage none other than our moderator, Ms. Wilby from AtoANI, who has also co-organized this session with us. Ms. Wilby, may you please call on your fellow panelists, and then I'll hand the floor over to you.
Thank you, Chantel. So again, I'm Wilvenna Añora from AtoANI. So basically, AtoANI is an agri-tech social enterprise that we're focusing on using technology to enable database produce demand sustainable agriculture model with our farming community. So we have our representatives coming in. And for now, since our topic is around the focus on AgriTech, we will be joined by an esteemed panel of speakers coming from different countries, different organizations and groups. So I'll be calling them one by one. Wait up. So let's start with, two people are joining online. We have Sir Hatim Issoufaly, Program Director of Ksapa, and Sir Ferron Haryanto, the CEO of a commodity. But right now, let me call on Sir Luca Fischer, the Program Manager of Koltiva. So Sir Luca Fischer Koltiva is a technology-enabled service company empowering over 700,000 producers and business users across 27 countries. So Koltiva supports some of the largest multinational companies by digitizing and verifying global supply chains. So Koltiva's focus is to enhance traceability, inclusiveness, and sustainability. Sir is leading Koltiva's palm oil and rubber field implementation projects. In his day-to-day work, Luca bridges the gap between the client, the product, and field team. He has more than 5 years of work experience related to sustainable sourcing, smallholder livelihood, and inclusive business. Luca Fischer has worked in the Global South, including Africa, Latin America, and Asia, and has graduated with a Master of Science in Sustainable Resource Management from the Technical University of Munich in Germany. Let's all welcome Sir Luca Fischer. Thank you, sir. Thank you for coming. All right. A round of applause, please. Okay. So now let me call on to give a more holistic view around this discussion around AgriTech. Let me call on Ma'am Nina Melesio. He is a representative from the one of AtoANI's partner farming communities with their own women's group, people organization, indigenous people group, as well as a cultural recovery group. So they are taking on an organized and more sustainable approach to farming in Bohol. So let us all welcome Nina Melesio. Thank you for coming, ma'am. All right, so the last who will be joining in person is Sir Jairus Ferrer, the CEO of iFarms. iFarms is dignifying Philippine agriculture through technology by giving their partner growers the liberty to publish their products, input their own process, and control their delivery schedule. Through their technology, businesses are able to connect, order, and schedule directly with growers. So let us all welcome Sir Jairus Ferrer, who actually gave a speech a while ago during the last discussion. Thank you, sir. All right. And I believe we have two more panelists who are joining in online. Let me start off with Sir Hatim Issoufaly, the Program Director of Ksapa. Yes, if you can. Yes, that one. So Hatim Issoufaly, who is in charge of designing and implementing the activities in the field for Ksapa in collaboration with local partners. He is responsible for strategic design and operational deployment of the SOTI program worldwide. And for the past 15 years, he has been intent on strengthening the capacity of local development actors to achieve impact at scale. So before Ksapa, he worked with Livelihood Ventures, an impact investment fund supported by multinational corporations such as Danone and Mars Inc. So it allowed him to reconnect large groups of vulnerable smallholders with a secure and profitable market. So structuring as a resilient supply chain through innovative agronomic models and social structuration, which enabled him to increase the net revenue of farmers while improving the quality and traceability of target commodities such as vanilla, coconut, or rice. So he holds a master's degree in comparative agriculture system from AgriTech and a tropical agriculture master's degree from Montpellier School of Agronomy. Let us all welcome Sir Hatim Issoufaly. Good afternoon, sir. And last but not the least, we have Sir Ferron Haryanto, the CEO of Commodity. So Sir Ferron, Commodity is an AgriTech company that digitizes Southeast Asia plantations to make them operate more efficiently and sustainably. So commodities include palm, oil, sugar, rubber, and durian. So currently, they help companies monitor over 100,000 hectares of palm oil across Indonesia and Malaysia. So Ferron grew up in the United States, where he studied computer engineering. So he spent the last 12 years as a technology consultant, where he helped companies implement their enterprise software. So let us all welcome Sir Ferron Haryanto. So good. Sorry. All right. So good afternoon, everyone. So how are you today? Perhaps is there another mic? Yeah. Another mic. All right. There. And so
Hi. Yeah, thank you for having us today. And yeah, doing good. I hope everybody else here too, not too tired after food coma or anything. I hope. Looking forward to the session. Yeah.
Yeah, you know, they say the hardest session is after lunch. So we have to make it entertaining, okay?
Filipino. Yes, sir.
Thank you, everyone, for joining this forum.
Yes, and thanks for having for on our call, Miss.
Thank you for having this honor.
Okay, thank you, ma'am. And can we have the Sir Ferron or Sir Hatim? Yeah?
Sure. Thank you so much for allowing us to join as a panelist. I'm looking forward to hearing other types of agri-tech in the Southeast Asia region. So thank you again, and looking forward to a nice discussion.
Yes, Sir Hatim.
Yes, hi everyone. So also happy to meet people working on the same sector, and happy to have a, let's say, a dynamic and shared discussion together.
Okay, yes, and thank you so much everyone for coming in. So as you might have heard from their bios, so our topic for today is a focus on agri-tech, particularly looking into inclusive or innovative solutions that allows for or enables a more inclusive and sustainable agriculture model for our farmers, customers, and relevant stakeholders. So let me start off. Speaking of agriculture and technology, what do you think is the role, or what do you think are the high impact possibilities that technology and data management opens up for agriculture? Perhaps you can start with the ones online. Or...
Okay, sure. Thanks so much. And so I think the highest impact that technology can bring, it's basically higher yield per hectare. And this is a challenge, I think, in palm oil especially, because the smallholders will not have as good practices and agriculture input as large companies. So what we try doing as a commodity is helping them manage their plantations better, whether it's a smallholder or a mid-sized plantation. Another thing that we can bring with technology is the quality of life for the actual smallholder, and whether that's bringing IT infrastructure or helping them use today's technology. Sometimes a smartphone is the first time they ever use a device. They're moving from a block phone. So I think higher yield per hectare and the quality of life of a farmer through technology would be the things that are the lowest hanging fruit, pun intended.
Okay, thank you so much, Sir Ferron. What about Sir Hatim? Yes, sir.
Yeah, thanks for this first question. So yes, I think the impact was already mentioned by Ferron, but I would say that the technology is also a very good lever to go to scale. Today, working with NGO local partners, we know that there are limitations to reach people. There are limitations in sanitary conditions. There are more and more limitations to communicate, but also to exchange. So the technology is a really good tool in order to, let's say, mitigate the constraint of the fuel, the price of gasoline or fuel raising, or the problem to reach vulnerable farmers who are very remote. So sometimes you have network, you have Wi-Fi, and most of the farmers, they can get connection. So we can indeed provide them trainings, and we can still communicate with them, and we can also reach a larger number of farmers. So the technology is definitely a tool, only a tool for me to reach more people and to provide them like very, very relevant information and trainings that they can get otherwise because of their location and their situation and their background. Yeah.
Okay, thank you so much, Hatim. So what I get is that we use technology to get to more people, to make it more scalable, and at the same time, to make more database recommendations towards them so that we wouldn't really waste our effort on something that is not really working. So perhaps you can have to share more about
Okay, yeah, thank you very much for having me here. Let me shortly introduce Koltiva for everyone. So we are a global technology-enabled service company. Basically, over the last years, we have empowered over 700,000 smallholder farmers and small and medium-sized enterprises along global agriculture value chains. Yeah, and our approach is usually to work with large multinational companies like Nestle, Mars, Cargill, to actually digitalize their supply chain and then verify issues within their supply chain. So this includes deforestation, child labor, exploitation along their supply chain. And basically, through that we try to enhance traceability, inclusiveness, so that the smallholders are integrated, and the sustainability as well. I think first of all, I want to step a bit back. So I want to look at maybe from Koltiva's side, what are the issues of our clients? Our clients are usually like the large private sector partners, like I mentioned, Nestle, Mars. They struggle. They work in very complex, multi-layered agriculture supply chains, and they get criticized for the deforestation, for the child labor in their supply chain, for the exploitation, and but they really struggle to figure out where is this happening, and they really lack the data insight. Yeah. And then on the other side, Koltiva, we always call ourselves, we are farmer first. So we focus on the smallholder farmer. Yeah. And they also struggle, but they face very, very different challenges. I think in the Philippines, it's probably similar. In Indonesia, from my experience, where I'm working, is that, smallholder farmers face land legality issues. They often don't have proper land titles. They have issues with good agricultural practices. Their productivity is very low. They also don't really have access to like good planting materials. The seedlings that they plant have low productivity. They don't have much bargaining power, and they are unbankable. So these are very, very different challenges. But basically, Koltiva tries to solve actually both challenges at the same time. So we do this by kind of trying to really digitalize the whole rural agricultural system. So we have an app for the farmer. We have an app for a dealer buying station, the middleman that is buying from the farmer. We have an app for like a small shop that is selling pesticides or seedling to the farmer. And then there's also an app for like extension stuff, like that are mapping these farmers, training these farmers, and visiting these farmers on a day-to-day basis. So when we look again at the challenges of these smallholder farmers, for example, land legality, with one of our apps, we basically, our field agents or our client field agents, they go to the farmer's plantation and they map the plantation. So we know exactly where this plantation is located, if it's located in forest area or not. And this really helps them to strengthen their land legality of their land. And on the other side, we have, as I mentioned, we have an app for an agri-input shop kiosk in the rural area and a dealer. So these apps help them to optimize their business. But at the same time, it gives the farmer, through the farmer app, access to good certified planting material and also to dealers and different prices, which increases their bargaining power in their supply chain. So through this digitalization approach, it empowers the farmer on the one side, but also we can use this data then for our clients, like Nestle, Mars, and Cargill, to actually provide them the necessary data in terms of traceability from seed to table. So everything that goes into a farm and everything that comes out of the farm, to then measure their risk in their supply chain, if it's deforestation, child labor, etc. So this is how I believe AgriTech solutions can really help the sector.
Yeah. And I believe you have a lot of solutions already for different sectors, different conditions. You mentioned, like, you even know the conditions of like the Philippine agriculture sector. Ma'am Nina can probably share more about it later once we hear out all the solutions coming from the panelists. So perhaps Jairus from iFarms can share more about their solution as well.
Okay. For me, it's very simple. Data is to make better decisions. Okay, let's not complicate it. Data is for us to be able to make better decisions, to be able to, for it to become actionable steps. Okay, when I was living in Manila, we created this platform called UMA, called, it's a platform, same, it's the similar, everyone is doing it. But I was humbled when I went back to Mindanao because I realized technology is not yet felt to the level of the cities, because the type of technology they need on the ground is as simple as water system technologies. How do you bridge that? Right? So allow me to share to you some of our experiences. And I come from a first person point of view because I started to realize sometimes we share things based on our perspective, but we forget to listen what people need on the ground. Is that correct?
Experience it.
We especially we people from the city like to push solutions to rural areas, but sometimes that's not what they need, because it's as basic as how will I eat again in the next meal? How will I flush my toilet? How will I bring my kids to school? All of these things. So I'm coming from a point of view of a humbled position, because I went there aggressive trying to bring in our platform. And then, sir, wala kaming pang charge ng cellphone. Sir, wala kaming signal. Sir, ganito, ganyan. So, I don't know if the technical team is ready. I'd like to just to run through a few slides of various things that we're doing. So I prepared this slide because the first company that we have is iFarms Incorporated. The newest company that we have, AASC. AASC means Agri Aqua Supply Chain Technologies Incorporated. And that company is very focused on very micro systems, which I'll share in a bit. So the way we do things is we always want to bridge development and innovation through agriculture. Everyone in this room is doing this. It's just that it's different parts of the problems in the value chain. Tama po ba? All of us are trying to solve something. However, I realize that we come in as everyone here in this room comes in as a service to solve a particular part in the value chain, correct? All right. And that's where, again, I shared earlier, conflict starts. However, this is our goal. Now, we design solutions for basic human needs. Tama po ba? A lot of the narrative today is like we do it for the farmer. But we have to remember that we're designing solutions for people. So we have to think, ano yung kaya natin gawin for design human needs. Now, we also believe in genuine peace through development. And the reason why I share this is because sometimes the conflict that we see in the news, if you go to the root cause, it's the most basic thing. Hindi nagkaintindihan kasi nagkaunahan sa resources or whatever, right? So we really believe that we should all design solutions for genuine peace through development. I'd like to go through a few examples that we've been experiencing for the past few. This is sorry, one slide back. Okay, I started to realize. So this is an area in Cotabato. It's one of the areas that we usually say it's red zone. When you say red zone, it's bawal pumasok. Okay, but I realized that when you go there, you start to understand what people's needs on the ground, and they start to say, ito yung kailangan namin on the ground. So kami, our approach is always to reverse engineer ano yung kailangan ng tao sa ground. Now, then we start to realize what's the economic factors around this. We all feel this. Farmers or traders or people in the city, tumataas po ang fuel. Tama po ba? How much is the dollar as of this morning? 59 pesos. Kaya yung 1,000 pesos po natin, it's very, very hard to buy already. Tama ba? Basic goods. Second, if you go to the rural areas, the most basic thing is hauling of water. Do you know that 30% of the day in rural areas, not all, I'm not generalizing, but many of the areas na walang kuryente is to just get water. Tama po ba? I don't know if this is relatable, but it's true on the ground. And of course, unpredictable weather patterns. So today, I'd like to really show you some of our innovations. And I realized that it's as basic as water. Maybe here in the city, we don't really appreciate this kasi we just open the gripo. Diba? Andyan lang yung tubig. But in any food security system, the first thing that we have to secure is water. Again, we design solutions for basic human needs. So with this in mind, I'd like to show to you some of the activities we've done. This is a demo that we've done, and I'd like to us to appreciate the community. They're here actually. Palakpakan po natin sila. Assalamualaikum. All right. So this is an activity of Acted a few weeks ago. This was in ano nga to sang area to? Dato Anggal, Mintimbang, okay? So this is 12 municipalities. And the thing here is we wanted to see if this solution is something that's really needed on the ground. Tama po ba? Because we have to assess. And funny thing is, I'll share to you more of the technology, but it's not about the technology. It's what the technology solves on an everyday activity. Tama po ba? So we have to put solutions that solves everyday activities to make things better for people. Now, again, I believe in technology that brings forward daily activities. Now, one of the things that we started to move in our company is this thing called basic solar water pump, okay? Again, it's harnessing the technology. We in the city, we're very familiar with this. Yeah, fine, technology, yeah. But if you bring this to the rural areas, it's a breakthrough for them. Why? Because it simplifies a daily activity, right? So again, these are our basic solutions, and we've been moving this throughout communities as well. Now, again, this is one innovation. And again, this is coming from a first-person point of view that for the past 3 years, sige kami push og app. Mobile app. And then people there would be like, okay, good, mobile app. We need water to flush our toilet. How do you communicate that, right? It's very, very humbling. Now, the other aspect also, again, if we start to see that, okay, water sources are varied. It comes from lakes. It comes from areas. Now, we took this program because of its portability. And at the same time, it's also various applications. It can be used for the household. It can be used also for the garden. Now, we believe that local supply is possible if you can do it in your backyard, if you empower each area. So everyone, I believe, is entrepreneurial. We just have to give the proper tools. Now, this is another example. This is another area in Cotabato. And this is more on the governance level. This is a community that has a fish landing. Usually, this is given by the local government unit. Okay? Now, sometimes the local government unit, you have to understand the role of the local government unit is to be able to put infrastructures like this, but not to give you the operational capital to work on it. Because I realize that there are parameters in the government that's very, very limited. So question is, what do you infuse there now? So this is in Pigkawayan, South Cotabato, and this is a marshland. Meaning, yung tubig namin sa Bukidnon ends up to this community, and they have one of the best fresh catch in the community. However, the question kanina, I think the community from Lana was telling us that we need to put solutions, and the most basic thing was ice. So the challenge was, how do you put a solution on an area na walang kuryente, the grid lines are not there, it's too expensive. Number 2, how do you make it mobile? And number 3, how do you provide what we call an in-transit solution? An in-transit solution means they can bring it to a far place. And usually the narrative is, let's put in a big ice plant, let's put in a big cold storage facility and all of that. But in reality, does the community have the capacity to absorb this? So we started to design something for the past 2 years, and we started to say, how do we bridge technology like the solar energy, the mobility of a 20-foot container van, and the power of battery systems that's equal to the Tesla cars? How do we bring that together? So we created this. We created a new company just to make this. It's called the Solar Mobile Ice Machine, and we call it Sahaya 1. Why Sahaya 1? What is the meaning of Sahaya, ma'am, sa community natin? It means light or hope. Tama po ba? So we wanted it to be cultural context. As of yesterday, this is our progress. This is the first unit in Cagayan de Oro. And our short-term goal is to be able to produce 10 units a month in Mindanao. Why did I bring this to Mindanao? Because sometimes when we hear something about Mindanao, the first thing that people hear is something negative. Tama po ba? We wanted to bring the best minds of the world. Marami po tayong mga retirees dito na AFAM, okay, who will start to work for different companies, and we start to hire them. This is our first unit, and this will be going to Pigkawayan. This has 36 kilowatt of power that can produce 150 kilos of ice every 3 hours. Okay? And the reason we started to develop this is because if we are able to put something like this in the rural community, then therefore it will attract economic commerce, it will start to activate activity, and logistics will start to feed itself. Let's go to data. This unit will be able to collect data and allow governance, community leaders to be able to catch the data. Why? We realize that to preserve 1 kilo of fish, you need to have 1 kilo of ice. So basic math would say, if we produce 150 kilos of ice, it translates to 150 kilos of fish. Now, if you go to the rural areas like the Basulta, I went to the Basilan, Sulu, and Tawi-Tawi areas, we started to realize, ba't hindi kayo humingi ng tulong sa mga leaders? They said, sir, our data needs to be backed up by Philippine Statistics Authority. Very challenging. They don't have that system there. So therefore, nagko-consolidate ang information in cities like Zamboanga, Cotabato, or Jensan. But the fish comes from the rural communities. With this solution, we can now justify that municipalities with this machine is producing this much ice, and that translates to development and activity, and they can now justify for more support. So this is an example of some of our innovations. So these are the actual photos of our innovation. Again, it's an in-transit solution, and we have a principle when we make solutions: keep it simple, stupid. KISS. It's a manufacturing principle that we apply, that no read, no write can operate this. Now, last 2 slides, I'd like to show this. One more. I don't know kung pwede pa. Okay. Again, the transfer of knowledge is there. All of us here, we're knowledge heavy, but we have to realize that we need to have the empathy, the patience, and the humility to go to the communities and the transfer of knowledge. And again, I like the term kanina is slow capital. We need to work around the nature of the plant or the community as well. And I think that's a last. So again, some non-food industries that we're doing. This is our farm, our family farm in Butuan City. And we said, what are the resources around? Sabi namin, meron kaming nipa and Nipa is a freshwater, brackish water palm, and we linked it to out of this. I think this has gone viral. Okay, ito po ay isang Muslim designed na low cost housing which we passed with NHA. Again, it's really partnering and linkages now. So these are just other examples. So again, innovation doesn't need to be complicated, but we also realize, let's listen to the people on the ground and start to ask them, baka the technologies are very simple, are very basic, and that's what we integrate. Okay, so thank you.
Okay, thank you so much for sharing, Sir Jairo. So we've seen a lot of their innovations that are catered to what is really needed in the situation in your locality. Perhaps we can share more about the knowledge transfer, suggestions later on, because there will be a lot of discussions around that, as well as the challenges. Can we have Sir Ferron from a commodity to share a bit about their solution and how they are helping farmers?
Absolutely. So in Indonesia, what we've experienced is that the infrastructure and education are quite limited in these areas where they're farming. So our solution is offline. So meaning the Android devices that we give to them do not need SIM cards. So when we collect data, it's using offline. It's directly to the handphone, and then when it goes to our servers, it's directly using Wi-Fi. So our engagement model is usually we'll go to an area or a company plantation that needs digitization. For a medium-sized company, let's say a few hundred hectares of palm oil, tens of workers, and then we will help them manage their workers. How many are harvesting today? How many are spraying? How many are applying fertilizer? How many are pruning? So with technology, we're basically making a clear picture on what they're doing with their farm. And one of the things that was used during COVID was face recognition. And face recognition makes sure that a worker who's present is actually going to get paid, was actually there. And then we know when they check in, it's a certain block or area. And when they check out at a certain time, we also know how many hours that they worked. Face recognition was COVID friendly compared to a fingerprint, which is how they used biometrics before. So e-commodity will go to plantations, palm oil, for durian, and for sugar and rubber. And we will help them manage their workers using Android system. And the Android system is offline, so they don't need SIM cards. So that's just a high level. Are there the 3 slides that I sent earlier before? If there are, then later on I can walk through a project. But if not, that's a good overview.
Okay. I guess there's none coming from the moderators. All right. Thank you so much for sharing, Sir Ferron. So there are a lot of technologies. We have simple technologies. We have sophisticated technologies. But at the end of the day, it's all about addressing the needs of who we are catering to, our target market, our target beneficiaries. So perhaps can have Sir Hatim to share more as well about the solutions and how are they helping farmers and the agricultural sector in general.
Yeah. Yes, thanks. I'm going to be a little bit shorter because otherwise it's a monologue and maybe there is no discussion here. It's less interesting, I would say. So I think what is interesting and through the testimony of the people before is that you have a different way of, as you said, listening to the farmers and all that. But what we are trying to do, and at Ksapa, the company where I work, we have an initiative called SUTI, which is Scale Up Initiative for Technical Training and Traceability. So I don't know if you can just project this one of the slide I've sent, but what we are doing is basically, instead of having small initiative to farmers community and providing them things that they would ask for, we try really to understand the problem all along the supply chain, like from farmers to the industrial or the clients, like Luca said. we work with clients, companies, but we also work with farmers. So what is interesting is to really co-design, and co-designing is really a key initiative that really aims to a common objective that we set together. So before, when I used to work 15 years with NGOs, local NGOs in the Philippines, in Cotabato. You mentioned Cotabato, and it's a very sensitive and very difficult context to work with. And when you work with NGOs, you see that you have very good initiative, successful initiative, but needs to be to scale. That's the first point. It has to be to scale. And second, it has to be connected with the other stakeholder in the supply chain. That means the industrial partners, the local middlemen, all the people that interact with farmers, because we are working mainly with smallholder farmers. And it's very important to understand what is the issues all along the supply chain, from the farmers, the middlemen, the first processor, second processor. You've mentioned the natural rubber supply chain, which is one of the most fragmented supply chain in the world. So it's very difficult to have the traceability, and I won't believe anyone saying that we know from the field up to the final product the full traceability, because today it's very challenging to have a supply chain, and technology help us to have a mapping of the supply chain. But you always have like gaps in between middlemen or black box where you don't know really what's happening there. So what is very important for us is to have a common understanding of what are the issues, the root cause, as you mentioned. The root cause, is it a lack of good planting material? Is it a lack of labor, skilled labor to harvest the coconut or to harvest, to tap the rubber trees? And today the technology helps to have a common vision between all the stakeholders in a supply chain, because they can have access to online data that are updated very, very often. And that provides data to the different stakeholders and the type of data and the type of information that they require. On the one hand, you have the farmer that needs training content, that needs good information, where to sell their product, where to buy their inputs. And this is what we are also providing in our app that we have developed. But the app is really a tool that supports really the understanding of the issue that we have identified. So at the contrary, when you look at the local industrial partners, the factory that usually process the raw materials that the farmers produce, they want to have a steady, sustainable, and the same quality supply. So for them, it's very important that they understand who are the farmers, what are their constraints, why they don't provide such quality that the factory requires. And this common understanding and diagnosis of the problem and the issue is really a good methodology that we have in order to really provide the good technology to support the deployment of activities or the deployment of trainings that we provide to farmers. So in the slides, because it's important in this working session, there was an emphasis on impacts. What are the impacts? And usually that's true that we are very happy to show our activity, to describe what we are doing. But I also would like to display some slide about what is the real impact for the farmers. We have run several questionnaires through our app that the farmers answers, and they can also answer whenever they want, because of course it's offline. Mr. Ferron rightly said that working on offline system is major when you work with farmers, because they don't have access to electricity every day. They don't have access to a network every time. So it's very important to adapt the technology also to the local context. And we gather impact from farmers. So really, what is, yes, okay, I will share my screen. I think it's maybe easier. So very, very quickly, I can show you that it's an impact survey that we did among our farmers. It's in Indonesia. It's a program that we are running on the natural rubber supply chain. And we have started some activities, and we have deployed trainings. So you have physical trainings, face-to-face training, like you have usually on development program. But after that, and during this training, we teach also the farmers how to use an app that will help them to follow up and strengthen their skills when they go back home, and they can share that with their family and friends. So we ran this study on a sample of 250 farmers out of 1,000 farmers in one region, and you can see that after the trainings and after the deployment of the technology, what is the impact? The first impact that they have, it's really the yield increase. And I see one of the participants say the main objective of deploying technology is really to increase the yield and then increase the revenue. But you can see that between the yield and the revenue, there is a huge gap, because usually sometimes even the yield increase, the value is not all for the farmers. And this is why we are all working with farmers, is how to provide a better value to farmers rather than to middlemen or to intermediaries that don't really add any value to that. And you can see that really when you ask the farmer if they've learned any new practice, of course, farmers, most of them, they never get proper trainings. They never get any trainings from the government or from any agencies. So providing this first level of information for them is very valuable. And we can see that the impact are here, and that they are using the technology when this technology is adapted and fitted to their needs, because of this co-design process that really involved them. I think this is what the previous intervention showed. Whenever you include the participant and the beneficiary, you always have a better impact than rather thinking about that on your computer and designing solutions that are not really fitted to the needs, but are fitted maybe to the trend or to other objectives that are from institutional donors or maybe the trend. So I just wanted to share first this slide, and in terms of technology that we are providing, of course, this is a kind of app. I think some of the participants here, Lucas mentioned it, Ferran also. So we have apps that provide.
It's very interesting so far. I think we'll be able to get to that once we get into a discussion on challenges and opportunities.
Yeah.
But for now, let's move on to the rest of the discussion. Thank you for sharing the slides, though.
Of course.
So, I guess let's take a more holistic view around this topic now. So, having heard about their solutions, their AgriTech solutions, let's hear from the farmers themselves, from the farming organizations, from one of the partner farming communities of AtoANI. How is this technologies that you've heard helpful for you and your farming organization?
From our farmers, technology is very important to us, because each one says that we will help farmers. We are here today, every one of us, sharing experiences, the successful and the not successful experiences. By hearing that situation, we from our place is very far from the national road or the provincial road. So it seems 200 pesos away riding a single motorcycle from our place is very far from the provincial road. So our farmers there is very hard to go to the town to sell their commodities. So if ever technology will be introduced to our barangay, so it's very most acceptable to us because we want more technology so that our production there is more progressive. If we have technology that will be introduced by our leaders.
Yeah. And also, I went to the place of Manila. Definitely, it's 1,000 plus sea level, no access to farm road. Those are the basic ones. They're actually implementing microorganisms to enable sustainable farming practices so that you don't rely on fertilizers, and they're kind of organized. But we'll discuss more about the challenges that they're facing, as well as the challenges that our agri-tech startups and companies are here. Perhaps you can share more. Thank you, Ma'am Nina.
Okay, if ever we have already a technology, so our challenges there is that we have no signal, we have no internet.
Yeah.
So it's very hard.
Yeah. So if we do have like technological solutions, you have to do it like you have to present the data manually so that it makes sense to them, right? Thanks, Mamina. So perhaps the other agri-tech startups, starting with Koltiva.
Yeah, thank you, Maria. Just, I think I want to go back to one point, which is also, I think, a challenge that has been came up a couple of times from Janus, also from Feron, is that the solutions that have to be designed need to be really user-centric. It needs to be really farmer-focused, or if it's along the supply chain, the dealer or the agro input shoppers need to really be specifically to their needs. And I think Koltiva also, we learned about this. I mean, our clients are largely, multinational companies. They care about, data in terms of sustainability, of traceability, but the farmer, it's not their first priority, right? Like you want to improve your productivity of your farm. You want to get maybe good seedlings to grow your farm. You need like electricity, you need cooling storage, you need like a low price for petrol, right? So there are different challenges. So I think one really important part is that the solution has to be designed really for the user at hand, right? And then it has to have these features that are relevant for the users. And I think also one other aspect I want to highlight is that, technology and apps and solutions are really important. But what we also realized, it still requires actually the boots on the ground, the field agents, the extension staff who visits these farmers on a day-to-day basis and actually helps them to understand, engages them, trains them on the apps, but also on just normal good agricultural practices. So that is still very much required. And that's also what we at Koltiva are doing. On the one side, we are providing apps along the supply chain. We digitalize the supply chain, but also at the same time, we also provide like the boots on the ground, the field agents and extension staff that actually visit these farmers on a day-to-day basis. Because if not, if you don't have this physical engagement, it's really difficult, right?
Yeah. More to your challenges from what you mentioned specific, but I do agree with being more engaging. Like Mom mentioned, you have to meet with them regularly. Otherwise, they will forget what you have mentioned like last year.
I think any solution provider, the question is, are we committed to journey with the community? And I think that's the reason why Rural Rising is very successful in relative success, if I may say, because they decided to journey with their community. And, every time we go to different communities, they will say, baka ngayon lang kayo pumunta dito. After, nabigay na, picture taking, tapos na. Right? And that's what I want to challenge people here. After the bells and whistles, are you willing to go back without the cameras? Are you willing to go back without the facades? Right? And I also realized that, it's very exciting to be in these areas, but there's also a running cost on everything, right? And I had a very interesting conversation recently. I don't need to name names, but from a policy level, we're the only country that does not subsidize our agricultural sector, right? Although there's a lot of ayuda, but we're a begging. Sorry to say this, it's very painful words. But we are a begging culture. if we want to rise, if we really want to increase, we increase human productivity by enabling people to be solution problem drivers, right? We all have to be solution driven people, and we all have to be problem solvers, right? And that's the reason why everyone here. We're all problem solvers in our own respect. Okay. So the challenges is very diverse. If you're talking about, it depends on the activity that has to be made. Okay, it's very diverse. But I really believe in making things very simple, right? Make things very simple that people can behave on it and carry it on a daily basis. Okay. I understand, the complications of making it user-centered, because we did that design, user-centered design, UI, UX, very, very highfalutin things. But at the end of the day, design it for people to use every day. Okay, so I think that's the highest impact that we can do. So yeah, that's a quick idea.
And indeed, no, and in this discussion in terms of challenges, if you do create something that not, for example, the farmers who are your end users could not use, then what's the use of it? Like spending so much months doing it, right? And also, can we have like the challenges that Hatim and Ferron probably experience where they're scaling their solution, seeing that you are present in various countries and have reached hectares of plantations? Ferron?
Sure, definitely. I think the challenge, like we were mentioning with Koltiva and also Ksapa, is the technology infrastructure. And the other thing was the education level. So what we had to do is use a lot of icons, especially when we were in Malaysia. There's a lot of foreign workers. And instead of having it English, Malaysian, and Indonesian, what we just did was choose a lot of icons so that it's easier for some people to select whether they're spraying or fertilizer or harvesting. That just makes it easier to use. And then road access and electricity access has been an issue. And then that dictates what type of vehicles you can work with this particular farmer. And so when we're trying to deliver the most value, we first have to understand the region. And even though it's, let's just go back to palm oil as an example. Even though the palm oil is still one commodity, if it's in a different area that's hilly, the sand is either peat soil or sand or mineral, and the type of workers, then you'll have a different type of system. So the challenge is that every area is different, even though it's the same commodity. And then we have to cater to the education level and in IT infrastructure.
Thank you for sharing, Sir Ferron. How about Sir Hatim? What are the challenges that you experience working with different smallholder farmers in terms of scaling it and applying, introducing it to more farming communities?
I totally agree to what Ferron and Lucas said. There is the problem of technology, infrastructure and all that, but most important is the farmers' engagement. What the problem that we are facing mainly is that the farmers we are working with are technology is not the only way, is not the only lever to help them, because at one point I would say they are spending a lot of time on social media, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and all that to share and to communicate. But when it comes to their farm, their business, I think that there is also a kind of education to do in terms of how also this kind of application can help them in daily life, and not only on the entertainment side, but only on their really business side. So helping them to use this app on a daily basis, because is also challenging. So they need also, as Lucas said, to see people on the ground with their boots on the ground. This is major, but still we also have to explain and show them the interest of having these two, let's say, source of information. The physical one, when you have people coming, visiting you and discussing with you, but also how the app can also support their daily life and their daily activity. So the engagement of farmer and the time you spend to help to teach them and to explain them about the app and how to use it and all that is really major also, and it's something that you should not underestimate. Otherwise, you develop a very fancy and sexy tool and technology, but at the end of the day, nobody is using it.
Okay, thank you for sharing, Sir Hatim. So definitely, you need to have to gauge a lot of farmers to spend a lot of your time, not only engage them, but to continue to teach them these new solutions, tech solutions, simple solutions that would be very helpful to them. So looking at the challenges that you've shared, as well as the solutions that you've shared, perhaps you can take in a more a policy making perspective, because you've shared already some recommendations. You shared already about the even in the past sessions or the previous sessions, you've shared already what we can recommend in terms of creating policies that can support these farmers, that can enable a more sustainable and inclusive agriculture. Perhaps let's start with what focus areas should we take into to enable these technologies to thrive and to scale and reach more farmers, reach more communities, but at the same time make it more sustainable as well, so that it's more inclusive and sustainable at the same time. Perhaps you can start, sir.
Policy level. Okay. Wow. I can go on and on with this for 2 hours. The policy level, we discovered this thing called transformational business partnerships for the plantations that we help facilitate. What is transformational business partnership? Yeah, recording is in progress. Okay. All right. Sige. Allow me to take a step back on the evolution of human beings. Before currency came about, we had this thing called work. Okay? God told us to work, or Allah told us to work. So the first capital that we all have is our human strength. Tama po ba? Or in current terms, it's called labor. The second capital that everyone has, or relatively everyone has, is this thing called land. Okay? Land and labor. In the current financial structure, we realize that the current financial structure does not recognize people without a credit line, meaning record in the banking system. That's why there's this thing called banking the unbanked. Tama po ba? But we also have to recognize in the other side, where people who are unbanked are not part of the financial system, they actually have a lot of transactions on a daily basis. It's just that it's not being recorded, correct? Now, how do you merge these two together from a policy level? I'd like to try to simplify it. The transformational business partnership business model that we are trying to apply in the BARM area is equity partnership, where the land area, which is about how many hectares, hundreds of hectares, and labor of the community is quantified into the equity partnership of the new corporation, 50-50. What does the corporation give? Management, technological know-how, access to market, access to financing. The other side gives their land, labor, but there's equal partnership in management. We realized that if we are co-partners instead of capitalistic point of view, there's more conversation happening, and at the same time, people will now, so of course, corporation will have to put into the investment side and, at the same time, take care of costs. But after, then it's equity sharing of 50-50. That's the only way to do it. No 60-40, no 70-30, 50-50 after everyone contributes into something. That's on a plantation level. It's a business model that we're willing to share, we're willing to open up, and we call it transformational business partnership. And it's the only business model that we've seen survive from a plantation level, policy level. Now, let's go to the second layer of policymakers for smallholder farmers. Let's simplify it, make it easy access to, that's the reason why all of these apps, it's because it's really just to record kung may economic activity, right? So again, hopefully we'll be able to influence a few policymakers from international banks and all of that very soon. But the conversation has started. The question is how to simplify, how to quantify what people have, which is land and labor. Okay, it's quite a complex thing, but we have to acknowledge that the current financial system just does not support the agricultural sector, because immediately the first question is, what's your ROI? Where in agriculture you have to wait years, right? We found out that there's a method to cure the disease of the banana industry. There's a pandemic happening in the banana industry. You know what it is? Go back to basic. A lot of organic matter. Allow the soil to recharge itself. And we also believe in the Sabbath year. Allow the soil to rest. Right? Let's go back to the ancient time of doing things. So this is basic technology. Okay? Allah said to work on 6 days. God said to work on 6 days. You rest on the seventh day. In land, work it for 6 years. Rest it on the seventh year. Very basic. Why? You start to kill the disease. Kasi walang kinakain yung disease eh. Again, I can go on and on with this, no? But point being, we have to begin to look at how nature works itself, how nature recharges itself, and design solutions around nature. Okay, so that's it.
Thank you for sharing, sir. Actually, it's kind of close to our heart because we're supporting regenerative, sustainable agriculture. I mentioned a while ago with microorganisms. You have to, just as you mentioned, keep the soil ready and also regenerate within itself. To less use of the synthetics. But more in the policy perspective, you mentioned that we might have different policies around plantations, around different groups, smallholder farmers. Perhaps, Sir Luca, in your end, what can you suggest to our policymakers?
Yeah, thanks. So I think I want to share a bit light from Koltiva's angle. So we are working mainly with multinational companies, yeah. And actually, when I have the conversation on a day-to-day basis with these companies, I actually see a lot of commitment. But actually, on legislative level, there's not much clarity yet. Yeah, so there's no, they cannot be sued, for example, if deforestation, if child labor, as exploitation is happening. So they're trying to put some effort into it, but there are also limits. There are also certain limits because, of course, they want to be profitable, right? And they have to be profitable as a business. So I think it needs clarity on this legislative, and this has to come especially, from or at least that's where it's also, we see it starting. It's for example, in the European Union, there's currently they are discussing the law. It's almost already actually finalized, which is on supply chain due diligence. So this will actually demand these companies, if there is deforestation, child labor happening in their supply chain, it will demand these companies to take care of it. And if not, they can be actually made accountable for it. And this will be, I think, a quite transformational change. And I think this is where also solutions like we are talking today about becoming key, because only with digitalization and providing access actually to the data, to the farmers, where are these farms located? Are they located in forest areas or not? Is there deforestation happening surrounding these farms? This needs to be known. Only then actually these companies can be made accountable, and it can provide, these apps can also provide then these companies solutions and to follow up on this legislation. Yeah, so I think there's already a lot going on currently, yeah, especially in the European level, and hopefully, other countries, and also in Asia and US and so on, jump on this train, yeah. I think we need to create clear legislations that make it actually accountable for these companies to act.
Definitely, no. So as you mentioned, the political will to really, they always mention that we do have a lot of beautiful laws, but it's so hard for us to implement it. And you go to other countries, like how easy it is for them to like implement their laws. And I guess that's part of the policy making. More than the laws that are created, it's also about the execution. Perhaps, Ms. Nina, you can share what do you think are like mechanisms that when we set up, or in terms of policy making perspective, that can help support the farmers?
In terms of policy making, the only thing I can say is that we will support the farmers and monitor the farmers and dialogue to the farmers to discuss about agriculture. That is policy. Thank you.
Yes, and also we also had a discussion with Ms. Nina a while ago. You mentioned about discussing with a lot of these farmers and also keep on reminding them about, for example, if you're introducing new solutions, because at the end of the day, they will tend to forget it. And also in terms of a policy making perspective, like you have a solution that you started, it might last for a few months, like you also shared a while ago, and then or siguro almost a year. But then what about the self-sufficiency of this one? You know, it's all about providing support to the farmers, but making it supporting them up to a level that they're self-sufficient enough that they don't need your help, right? So that you can support other farmers as well. And also around these challenges that you mentioned around road access, the basic internet, for instance, communication is really important. So perhaps from the ones online, Sir Hatim, you can probably share what are your recommendations to policymakers in general to be able to scale this agri-tech solutions and also support farmers and the whole agriculture sector in general?
Yes, I would build on what Lucas said. Before he's referring to clarity in the policies. I would say consistency, because indeed, if you take the example of Europe, and their regulation that is about to be indeed launched is they want traceability. Traceability of the supply chain in order to secure their policy on zero deforestation, product free of child labor or any working condition abuses. But on the other side, you have also to see that this kind of regulation and this kind of constraint is really a burden when you work at the smallholder farmer level. I mean, if you ask and if you request all industry to have the contact number, it's almost that email address and all data from the farmers, there is a kind of problem in terms of privacy, I would say. And providing information in terms of area is okay, that the product that you are sourcing is not coming from deforested area or sensitive area is one thing. But providing data on individuals is also going at the opposite, I would say, stream of data privacy and being not totally visible. And providing like sensitive information that could also create a monopoly position for some local company. So we need some consistency on the right hand. We need transparency and be sure that the product that we import in Europe are clean and safe. But on the other side, we need also to respect the data, the privacy of farmers, and also the choice to sell to this or this company. And this is also very difficult today in the institutional context, in the policy making decision level. I mean, it's also quite challenging. And I would say that consistency is the first, and simplicity is the first thing that we are requesting.
Definitely no consistency in the laws and also in the execution of it, as you mentioned, sir. So perhaps, Sir Ferron, can you share also your suggestions about the policymakers and how we can better support the solutions to be scaled to more farming communities and at the same time help support the whole agriculture sector?
Okay. When it comes to policy making, is that if you mean my government regulations, I think it depends on the country. So, for example, Indonesia has a lot of policies, and I like their policies a lot. But whether they're enforced or able to be enforced is a different issue. And then Malaysia, you'll have good policies as well, and you'll find that they can be enforced. And I think it's also related to the land rights that Koltiva mentioned, Luca. It's just a wild west sometimes in these areas. So I would say policies are dependent on the country. And if our focus right now is in Indonesia, I would hope maybe instead of policies, maybe in the education areas from, I think they call it SMA or SD in here, middle school, start teaching the basics of tech, the ones especially that can be used in for Androids, used for simple Wi-Fi. Just start getting the young people able to learn about tech first. And then because right now what we've seen is e-commodity, we have to train people that are between 20 and 30 years old. It would have been great if they had beginning education on technology before. So I guess instead of policy, I would focus on the education requirements in these areas.
Thank you so much for sharing, sir. So indeed, no, I can have a lot of focus. Yes, of course, policies is in there. You can take an education awareness. Perhaps anyone from the panel would like to share additional focus areas aside from the policies, education as mentioned by the commodity, which we can take on so that these, because we're focusing on AgriTech, these solutions can scale to more communities. Or perhaps from the audience, you have some suggestions? What areas to focus on apart from policies, apart from education, technology transfer? One? All right, so I guess that's it for this panel. Any questions that you have? Because we still have time. I think we still have 6 minutes. If you do have questions that you want to have from the panel, because they're coming from, we have a lot of really good solutions. In the AgriTech sector, you might have something to ask from the panel, or you want to share something out from the session? Anyone? Wala? None? Yeah, or yes, before.
Sige, go ahead.
Hello. Can you share some success factor or even failure lesson learned in bringing agricultural technology to the farmers? I heard that many times you need to also provide a training to younger farmer because they are the one who are open to technology. Do you also consider to target those women group in the community as well? Thank you.
Women's group, consider women's group towards these solutions.
Yeah,
involving them
as a target. And also my first question would be sharing some success factor and also the failure when you bring those technology to farmers. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. Success factor. Anyone can answer. Please feel free to any success factors which you can probably share and involving the women's.
Yeah, maybe just one factor is, I think we already talked about earlier. I think technology can be really useful if it's user-centric, right? And we also talked about that it still actually requires the people on the ground, the boots on the ground, that visiting the farmers and that providing then training on the app, but maybe also on good agricultural practices. Yeah. So at Koltiva, we also, in our projects, we also provide training to smallholder farmers directly. And basically all the data is recorded by our field agents into our app. And we also there in our projects, we specifically also focus on women. And we do this by actually, we moved a bit away from large group trainings of farmers, because on the one side, sometimes group trainings can be very you have only a certain group of people participating. Sometimes maybe the woman, they have to stay at home, cook the meal. So at Koltiva, we started providing actually one-on-one coaching sessions to the farmers. So our field agents, they go to the farm, they look at the data that has been previously collected. They look at, what are the issues actually on the farm, and then really discuss with the farmer and really show them practices on how to improve their agricultural practices. And this one-on-one session really allows us then also to be like flexible to the schedule and of the woman, and then also reach a larger number of women within our projects.
Great, thank you. So yes, we keep on mentioning the word user design, hearing about what they really need, right? Instead of just putting out your solutions there. Perhaps in the online panel, you can answer about like the women's, do you have solutions around this or success factors?
I would say, sorry. Just one. I just give you an example. What we are also doing, it's as long as we are at Ksapa, we are focusing on supply chain. We realize, especially if you talk about the success factor regarding women, that of course women, we always involve women in the program because it's half of the beneficiary that we are working with. But they are not visible in the supply chain. They are working a lot, but they are not visible. So one of the objective is really to make them visible in more, let's say, at more steps of the supply chain. So usually what we do is that women, they are really involved in the diversification activity that we can create and we can plug to the activity related to the main supply chain. For instance, I just give you an example. What we did in a project in Thailand for rice supply chain, like usually the farmers, they after harvesting the rice, they burn the rice straws, and through technology again, we target a women's group because the women, they sometimes prefer to have activities in group, and it's more also when you're working in society where it's difficult to access women one-to-one. It's easier to gather them together and to work and train them together on one specific activity. So we train them on pilot project to how they can use the straw of the rice instead of burning them on the field and making boards for construction, like small initiative like that we can replicate because this initiative is plugged on the rice supply chain. So there is a real visibility of these women in the supply chain, but in the same time, they diversify and they increase the source of income for the community, which increase the resilience of the whole community. So we integrate the women let's say as a community, in a group that really supports the supply chain and also support the diversification of activities in a specific landscape.
Yes, about diversity and inclusion. Sir, Ferron, you were talking a while ago, yeah?
Yes, just a really quick. Just one of our goals with using software is to make sure that for human resources, we want to make sure that everyone's accounted for. And so when we were choosing our technology for face recognition, specifically for women in Indonesia, I would say the majority use hijabs. So we had to make sure that we chose a facial recognition that was able to identify them with a 99.9 percentile, and thereby then and only then we chose that software. So I don't know if that's considered a success story, but it's we have to include everyone inside technology, and the benefit from face recognition is obviously no data manipulation. They can get paid directly from the digital banking, and so we don't want to leave them out.
Thank you, sir. About since Ms. Nina, you have a women's group as well in your community. Perhaps you can share, how do you involve this women?
In the sense that our women's there is accredited women's association, so we will tap our women's to to help this program to be a successful one. Thank you.
They're really supportive around the programs we do implement in their area because they're kind of organized and there's a diversity in terms of numbers of the farmers. So I guess we're around 3 o'clock already. Any last thoughts, call to action from our panelists, which you want to share? You're good?
Maybe just one last statement. I mean, I think there is a lot of demand or increasing demand, for sustainable products from the farmers, for transparent, traceable, sustainable products. We also see on the legislative action from the European Union that there will be also the support from the legislative action. I think what AgriTech can really offer, and also the companies here, is really through the digitalization of the supply chain, we can ensure that smallholders farmers are integrated. Yeah, because there's a really high risk by really demanding these companies to restore through a sustainable deforestation, child labor free, that they just focus on the large companies, because there it's very easy to monitor. Digital solutions like today that have been discussed, they really, since they're focused on the smallholder farmers, digitalizing them, this can really be, or will be, key to actually also manage these commitments and ensure that in future also smallholders are integrated in sustainable agriculture supply chains.
Okay, thank you, Luca. Yes, any final?
I heard that director from Saad, that
Director from Saad is where a while ago, the previous session.
he says that there is a phase 2 of Saad. So I hope that will be one of those beneficiary for the next years to come. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you so much. Perhaps we can connect after the session, so the networking session later.
Yeah. I would like to encourage everyone here, go back to the province. No, really, go back to the province. There's too many people in Metro Manila. The knowledge base is already mature. There's the internet. Guys, go back to the province. We need more people in the field. This is good. I love it. Thank you for the invitation, Acted. I really appreciate it. But let's go back to the rural areas and get our hands dirty. Okay?
Yes. Thank you. Yes, I guess one more word from our panelists. None? It's okay already? Yes, I think that's it. Thank you so much for having or from iFarms, Koltiva, Farmers Group, also from Ksapa and also Commodity. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.